Each and every week on The Informer, we reach out to our small business specialist. She's been a whiz from day one. Her name is Angela Vithoulkas. And we go via Zoom to Sydney and say, welcome, Ange.
Hi.
Now, ordinarily, you and I would be catching up this week, but Daniel Andrews, the Premier of Victoria, has basically decided that he should tell each and everybody else around Australia, hang on, wait till our Roll Gold contact tracing team does what it needs to do. It's going to take a while. I'm sorry, Ange, we've only been waiting 18 months. Signor me. But seriously...
I was so excited to come to Melbourne and do some shopping and catch up with my friends and... No.
I can't begin to tell you, there are hordes of people who are Angela Vithoulkas fans, want to catch up, and we've got them on pause. It's just shattering. One thing that hasn't been put on pause, though, is the federal government's desire to tinker yet again with superannuation. What's going on?
It's a rare moment when I say to you that Mr. Katter from Queensland is sensible.
Oh dear.
It's a rare moment. But in this case, George, he actually is the smartest banana in the bunch as far as Queensland is concerned. And he is rightly outraged over the changes yet again to superannuation that the feds want to do. Now, surprisingly, this is a Liberal government who is supposed to be all about free market and enterprise. And they are about to make some decisions, which hopefully with the sanity of the crossbench, it won't happen. But there's a couple of problems here that I'm concerned with. Number one thing they want to do is what they're calling staple your original super fund. So whoever you signed up with originally, whether you were 18 or 50, that's the fund you're stuck with. And I don't understand, having been an employer all my life, we went through so much red tape about, you know, whether it was the fund that the employer set up or the employee set up and what that all looks like. And now yet again, they want to twist it around.
Angela,
and life changes.
Angela, I understand it's life changing. I thought portability was something that was built into this.
Well, this is what we're all walking around going, what? Because if you get stuck with the fund that you first signed up with, let's say you're 18 and you've got a part-time job at McDonald's and you happen to be using the same super fund that hospitality uses. And then you go on to university, you get a degree and you move to another industry and you want a different type of super that serves your needs.
Legitimate.
Bad luck.
Wow.
Bad luck. Now, the other thing is that not only does the federal government want to tell you, and here's where I start to subscribe to a couple of conspiracy theories, not only do they want to tell you which fund, but then they also want to be in a position of power to decide whether or not the fund that you're in is choosing to make an investment in something that might not be in national interests of Australia.
Oh, wow. So we're now talking about foreign interests having a hold. Is this more of what happened in Victoria with its desire to hook up with the Belt and Road Initiative, which was very much under the spell of the Chinese Communist Party? Oh, okay. All right. So yet another dimension being put into our playlist.
Another dimension
Sorry,
where...
I should say not playlist. They don't want us to play.
Because these super companies... They need more oversight. There's no doubt about that. They need more oversight and governance because they are handling billions and billions of dollars. But once we open that door where any sitting government has the ability to veto an investment and override any board based on what they consider a national interest, we're starting to tinker along the sides of something, for me, that feels a bit like communism. And what if there's another extreme government put into power, or suddenly the minorities have the power to put forward suggestions? If we open that door, George, I'm very worried what it will unlock.
Look, I used to do the news a long time ago, the world news, and we always would talk about governments coming in and nationalising assets, nationalising industries and this, that and the other. This is not the sort of thing you would expect to hear or see emanating out of Canberra at this moment. So you're saying it's been a consideration. Wow.
Well, you have to wonder why a Liberal government and a Treasurer who's been very pro-free market and open about enterprise and, wanting, if you have a go, you get a go. Why would someone like that possibly want to take on that responsibility and not understand that the legacy of any government is what they leave behind?
Yeah.
And he'll be leaving a mess.
The way you're talking about that, it says to me something has startled the horses, and they're all running around looking for options.
Or
yes,
who's lobbying the government and whose interests lie where?
Okay, that's very fair. Very fair. That's more likely, the more I think about it, where we're going with. Okay. Should we talk about what's happened in Victoria? Because we want to try and include the entire nation when we talk small business enterprises and SMEs. This is so important. In Victoria, the state government of Daniel Andrews and their Treasurer Tim Pallas have made a number of tax decisions that are startling, if you think about it. Do you want to touch on that?
I was shocked when I read this. I had to read it several times and make sure that I hadn't taken leave of my senses. So your state government in Victoria wants to play with payroll tax. And a good decision that they've made is to acknowledge that there is a mental health issue.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
Kudos.
Yep.
But they want employers to fund a mental health program. And they want to do that by increasing payroll tax. So let me see here, George. We want jobs, right? We want people to employ more people. SMEs employ half the workforce in Australia, a good chunk of them in Victoria. So what are we going to do? Let's kick them where it hurts the most and tax them on the tax that taxes employment. So we can fund mental health, which I'm assuming will be open to everybody. Now, we know that every state government in Australia relies on payroll tax to a very large degree to fund their state coffers. We understand that. We don't agree with it, but we understand it. But the state government, the Victorian state government, wants to raise the mental health levy, and that's what they're going to call it, within payroll tax. They're going to lower the threshold, possibly lower the percentage of what you have to reach in order to start paying payroll tax. Or they've gone to PwC for a report which says, you know what, let's get rid of payroll tax, but let's increase GST to 12.5%. Now, the problem, George, here is that one is a federal tax, GST,
and the other one's a state tax.
One is a state tax, which is payroll tax. And mental health should be something that is definitely on the agenda of every level of government, in particular federal government, because it's healthcare.
Yeah.
So how state government is trying to tinker, I don't know. The startling factor, of course, is that it's going to be a 0.5% levy for medium-sized businesses. And I'm going to read this because I want to get it right.
Yep.
And a 3.8 billion overhaul of mental health services. So that's how they're going to fund it.
Do you think this is an overreach, or is it more a case of the state government wanting to spark interest from the federal government to say, now, hang on, you might be overdoing it here. Let's review our strategies, and we'll include this in a federal sphere. And we'll do a tax for all Australians rather than Victoria trying to overreach and damage the sector that you're suggesting doesn't need any more taxing.
Well, they certainly, I think, want to put the blame or point the finger at saying, well, the feds aren't doing enough about it. We've got to do it. And the only way we can do it is to tax employment, because that's what it is. $700,000 threshold on payroll is a small business threshold. That's who they're going to kick in the guts.
All right.
And for me, you might as well be, telling people, stop employing anyone because you won't be able to afford it. They're going to price us out of employment, basically, and you will lose enterprising individuals. They'll all come to New South Wales, George.
Brain drain. It's happened to other states in the past. I know there are great periods during the 70s and 80s where you saw an enormous brain brain drain from WA and also from South Australia, and they came east. They came to Victoria, they came to Sydney, and they went to Queensland. So, or they've gone overseas. So that's the other challenge that we're facing.
Amazon. Let's talk Amazon, George.
You're talking, hang on. You're talking about Mr. Bezos?
Well, Mr. Bezos has come up with an amazing option here and an opportunity for you, George. This is for you. I thought of you when I looked at this because
okay.
The benefit here is Amazon has finally opened up in Western Sydney. Of course, all great ideas happen in New South Wales. And what he's doing, it's print on demand. So, George, when you write your memoirs, you won't have to commission, a print run of 50,000 books. You can just touch base with all your fans and say, guess what? All my fans love me. Pull out your little Stripe payment thing, get them to pay ahead, and then you can order and print on demand for all of your amazing fans and followers, George. You won't have to ask me to store 10,000 books in my garage. Because you'll be able to send them out individually.
Okay, so aside from the comic input that I appreciate very much, what you're saying is that Amazon is about to change the way we can produce and publish books.
And particularly for self-published authors, small business authors are notorious for writing something on their expert field and using that book then to project their credibility. Publishing and the cost of publishing has always been a big factor if you are going to self-publish. This changes the game. It's not about an ebook anymore. It's about, I've sold 50 copies of my book this week. I can get 50 printed.
Wow. Okay. So there it is. Amazon pushing the envelope yet again and showing us how they can do their particular interpretation of publishing in a fashion that only a matter of a couple of years ago was impossible to think of.
Correct.
Okay.
So we might not like Amazon about other things, but in this case we do.
Okay. Do we like Coles anymore after some of their decision making of the last week?
No, I'm insulted.
We need to explain. Coles has gone out of their way, and they're now added their alcohol to their online business. So they're saying there's nowhere that we can't accommodate you, except they've been extraordinarily inventive in that they've added an enormous little disclaimer, because I believe that they've reached out to the International Alliance for Responsible Drinking to suggest that they're on top of things and they understand how our habits might change, but they'll look after us.
They want to reassure everyone that just because they've jumped on the online bandwagon of being able to deliver alcohol to your door, they want to assure everyone that they are not going to be contributing to irresponsible drinking. So they've signed up to the International Alliance, but they've also done something else, George, and this I need to read you because you won't believe it.
Go on.
They've set out some of their amazing conditions to show how forward-thinking they are, George.
And careful.
So here it is.
And careful. They're looking after us.
They're being very responsible.
Righto.
Because they're going to install measures that include no unattended same-day delivery, George. So if you're not home, they're not dropping off the beer.
So that's to make sure that your next door neighbour or anyone else in the street doesn't reach in and take it. Is that what you're talking about?
There's that.
I'm appreciative of that. I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah, me too, because I don't want just anyone taking my mower off the front doorstep, right?
Mow it.
My personal favourite, there's two conditions that are my personal favourites. The first one is that no deliveries will be made to a public place in an alcohol-free zone.
Got it.
George, you won't be able to get onto Coles Online and say, I'm standing on the corner of George and King in the middle of the city, please deliver right here.
Yep.
Even though there's a sign that says alcohol-free zone from the police. You won't be able to do that, George.
Yeah, I was going to think more beach zone territory We
Yep,
have our
no.
beachfront where people say no alcohol on our beaches.
Yep.
So you're saying to me that Coles are going to make sure that there's no delivery at all. Should I be wanting to have a party on the beach?
And my personal favourite
Go on.
is they won't deliver to you and leave alcohol with you if you are intoxicated. If the little delivery man looks at you when he knocks on the door and you open the door and you pass the intoxicated test, which I'm not sure that he's qualified to do, but anyway, if he thinks you're 3 sheets to the wind, he's taken the moet and leaving.
Wow. Okay. Can you imagine what could possibly go wrong?
Well, I mean, personally, I think I am being responsible if I don't get in the car drunk and go to the grog shop and get more grog, and I'm being responsible by, having it delivered. So now Big Brother Coles is going to be deciding whether I've had too much to drink at home.
Wow.
Yay.
Wow. You've covered some territory. We've gone from superannuation, we've gone to payroll tax, we've reached into Amazon, that is just about the biggest company in the world today, unless, of course, you're talking about LVMH, who that continues to thrive in these incredibly disrupted times. Mr. Bernard Arnault is now one of the richest men in the world. Go figure. Apparently,
I should call him.
People apparently love luxury goods. Bless them. Bless them. Yeah, I know a couple of people who do that too. Listen, as usual, look forward to next week and what you're going to dig up. But when it comes to SMEs and small business, our expert and the person who stirs the pot with great regularity and with great energy is Angela Vithoulkas. Thank you, Angela.